Do you ever get that feeling of something warm and familiar?
And the virtuous sound of music.
Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
The year is 2020, the year of nostalgia. Those 80s throwbacks, hipster fashion, reboots and remakes, fear of the future and a denial of the past. And of course, the world's end. Throwbacks are cool, until you realise they don't reflect your decade. Also, how much sci-fi can you get from the 80s? Hipster clothes can't all be that bad, depending on what you're wearing, but turtlenecks, they can fuck off. Future ain't too good, always changing and moving on. Who knows what will happen after a pandemic? And the past? Well, that's something never to forget. The thing we learn from, and you know what? It ain't that bad. So what have we got? What do we need to learn from this? What do we need to learn the lessons we need? Well, there's The World's End. Yes, it's a comedy, and a lot of people ask me if this is a joke. It isn't supposed to be.
Come on, once more.
So the 2010s was a weird decade. Even though many great movements in culture and society happened, there seemed to be a weird focus on throwbacks, whether in film and TV, fashion, or other related media. A great way of looking at this problem, though, is through a certain film called The World's End, the third of Edgar Wright's Cornetto trilogy. The trilogy follows the trio of actors Nick Frost and Simon Pegg, as well as their friend, who is a writer, Edgar Wright, as they make these comedy action adventures in British suburbia and other surrounding areas. Starting, of course, with their first film, which was Shaun of the Dead, then on to Hot Fuzz, and their third film, The World's End. The films they make, though, often reflect the generation that the trio are from, through the years that they are made. So with Shaun of the Dead, when they were younger, it showed the zombie-like part of young adulthood, when you're getting a crap job and every day just feels the same. And with Hot Fuzz, it was more of that seriousness that comes with being older. But it would make sense that with their third film, it'd be a bit more self-reflective as they are getting older. Their third film, of course, is The World's End, which both reflects their generation again, as well as the current state of things going on in the decade. The film follows Gary King, a man stuck in his past, taking his high school friends back to their hometown to relive a pub crawl tradition they did as kids. Of course, it's not the same as it was when they were younger, and they slowly learn that the town has been remodeled in many ways, literally as well, by the people being replaced by robots. On paper, it's a crazy synopsis, but what the characters and the setting explore really tell a very rich story. The clever part of the film is that it has two conflicting character arcs. Gary is a man that lives in the past. This is shown with him trying to relive the past, being oblivious to the changes and acting like nothing has changed, even wearing the same clothes he did at the start of the film when he was younger. On the other hand, we have his friends who have distanced themselves greatly from the past, and they only choose to look at the negative parts rather than the great times that they had. As the film progresses, the characters have to face their past in their own ways. Gary, of course, keeps avoiding the robots, remaining adamant to follow the pub crawl, and isn't until he can no longer do anything but fight them, he breaks down and shows us that he's had many problems from the start. With the others, though, it shows them learning to enjoy themselves again and let go, but also keep the responsibility they have gained over the years. This shows the meaning of the film to me. Being able to move on from the past, but also being able to learn from it. The plot and setting, of course, push this perfectly. As they return, they realise that everything is weirdly the same, which of course enables Gary's character. As we progress, we realise that all the pubs they visit are also the same, which is remarked by another character. The film constantly shows this past as something to enable the characters to either fight or embrace. When the gang come in contact with robots, we find out that they haven't just been replacing the village, but also all the people. And these robots are these hollow shells. And the gang, literally figuratively, have to fight their own past in order to survive. But the robots, of course, use their past to their advantage, using their nostalgic gaze to lure them in. And just like nostalgia, these people are hollow with no soul. And this is what the film does so well. It addresses the problem of the past and the allure of nostalgia. If we look back at the modern day, we're constantly seeing throwbacks and remakes in the film industry. Iconic classics being remade in order to recatch that feeling that sadly is not there anymore. Yeah, some nostalgia is fine, but when we start to glorify aspects of the past, we soon replace it in a certain light, just like the robots do in the film. The reason it is no longer the same is because we cannot recreate something that is restricted by time. When we recreate something rather than making something new, we lose its soul, just like in the robots, because the problem with nostalgia is that it glorifies the past, giving us nothing to learn from. We should embrace the fault of the past and learn from it. This, of course, is something we see from the characters, but ultimately the ending tells a very different story. The ending of this film shows the characters ultimately winning in what they want, but the whole world gets taken back to the Dark Ages with an EMP device, after the robots are defeated. Their past and everything, their future they worked for, is ultimately gone as they now live in the medieval era. What this ultimately tells me is that when we try to live in the past, we can often get stuck.